Okay, Kimberly, we're going to try this, loading it straight to YouTube. We're going to make a roux, gravy, whatever you want to call it. We're going to start with the roux, then go into a gravy. You need 1 tablespoon of butter for every cup of liquid. So what I have is I got 2 cups of liquid I'm planning on turning into a gravy. So I'm throwing 2 tablespoons of butter in here, and I've got the heat on high because I want it to cook down. Now, like I said, it's 1 tablespoon of butter for every cup of liquid. And so I'm doing 2. So it's 2 tablespoons. I also have 2 tablespoons of flour that I'm going to add after I melt the butter, which is going to take a minute because you know butter doesn't go forever. So I'm going to pause. As you can see, the butter has almost completely melted. I've got it to where it is, so now it's all liquid. And I'm using a whisk. Wouldn't use it in a non-stick pan. This is not a non-stick pan, so it shouldn't be a problem. So now that I've got it, see how it's all cooking and bubbly? Now I'm going to throw in the flour. Now, when you put, it's 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of flour, so when you put the flour in, you want to cook it a little bit. And because you don't want your gravy or your stew or whatever to taste like flour, yucky yucky. So what I'm doing right now is, other than making sure there's no stuff around the edges, is I'm going to cook it for just 1 minute. Now you can see it's all bubbly and everything. It has changed a little bit in color, not a whole lot, so it's ready. So what I'm going to do too is that before I add any roux liquid to it, which in this case is going to be 2 cups of beef stock and a splash of half and half, because I'm trying to make a white beef gravy. And a little salt and pepper to it. So now it's all cooking up. I had the temperature on high, just dropped it to about 8. And what I'm going to do is add the liquid a little bit at a time. As you can see, steam is rising. And you can see it's kind of clumping together again. So what I'm doing is, like I said, pouring a little bit at a time. See, it clumps up together again. That's why I got the whisk out. And the reason you want to do a little at a time is see how it's getting lumped every time I add more liquid, because it's thickening it and turning it into the roux. So I'm trying to make sure that all the liquid I pour in keeps does that. And keeping it moving all the time is the best way to do that. So I've got it pretty much to where it's thin enough to be worthy, and apparently I didn't get all my beef stock dissolved, so I'm gonna work that in there too. So I'm going to cook it a little bit at this temperature, not very long, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. The final step, like I said, I didn't cook it very long. It hasn't even boiled, and you could do that if you wanted to, but I really don't see a big purpose in it unless you want to cook some more stuff in it, or if you're putting other stuff in it. But to know that it's ready, or it's the consistency you want, is what you do is you stick a fork or a spoon in it, kind of roll it around, and you see how it's coating the back of the spoon. It's not running really, it's dripping a little from the inside, but it's pretty holding its stuff. If you can take your finger and do that, and oh, here we go, now you can see it, that, and see how it's not running into one another. That means it's a pretty good gravy. Now granted, it looks a little thin right now. If you think it's too thin, you can always add, you know, a little more butter or a little more flour in another pan and then kind of mix it in to thicken it up. Or you can make a slurry, which is what I'm going to do next, because I kind of want it a little thicker. So hold on. Now with the slurry, you take the cornstarch and you kind of put it in a little container, and then you add a little bit of cold water. When I say a little bit, I seriously mean a little bit. And what you do here is you take and you turn it into this kind of a white paste. Now, because this liquid's boiling, I'm going to kind of temper it in so as not to make like lumps, which you really don't too much with cornstarch. For some reason, though, I do. So I'm taking it and I'm tempering the gravy into the cornstarch real quick. Okay, I'm up to 5 minutes. I got to get off this thing soon. So then after that, I put it in to my gravy. And I'm going to do that. Now, what you normally do is 1 tablespoon of cornstarch for every 2 cups of liquid. So 1 tablespoon for 2 cups of liquid. In this case, I did very little because I don't really want it to do much. So this is how you make a gravy. I'll let this, because it's got cornstarch in it now, I'm going to let it cook for like a minute. And maybe less than, more like 30 seconds, whenever it starts getting thick the way, a little bit, because you got to cook the cornstarch to make it work. And then when it's done, we'll look at the thickness again. This is what I did. I did the roux, and I made that, and then I showed you the slurry. You take the cornstarch, add a little bit of water, and then work it into the gravy. Now I'm getting the kind of gravy I want. See that? Now that's some serious gravy. The reason I like the roux is because I do like the added fat. It tastes really, really good. The reason I like the cornstarch method or the slurry method is because I don't want that much added fat. So it's a combination of the two, and I come up with the right mix. So this is my gravy. I hope this helps you learn how to do it, Kim. If you have more questions, just let me know.